Coaches, elevate your career with the AFCA Career Center. Designed exclusively for active members, this platform provides powerful tools to boost your job search, professional growth, and team building. Create a personalized career profile, explore job openings at all levels, connect directly with hiring organizations, and even post open positions to find top talent for your program. Log in to your AFCA portal today and discover the opportunities waiting for you. Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we sit down with Keiser University Head Coach and 2024 AFCA NAIA Coach of the Year, Myles Russ. In this conversation, Coach Russ discusses his entry into the profession, his journey to becoming a head coach at Keiser, and being named Coach of the Year in the NAIA by the AFCA. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Russ. Coach, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be a part of this podcast, man.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It's funny recording this right after the convention. I just spent about 24 hours with you. I've been a part of that 35 on 35 class, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But it's been my pleasure to get to know you over this short time, man.
Yes, man. I'm excited.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into this bad boy.
Okay.
The first question I always ask is, when was that moment in time that you knew that you wanted to be a part of this great profession?
So, I kind of already knew to a certain extent. So my father, was my coach all the way through to that high school mark. I'm the only child. So, I was the house that all the, guys used to come to and have sleepovers and, be a part of that Pop Warner basketball, every time different sport I was part of. And, my dad was that father figure for a lot of my friends and the team. So I always, kind of knew. And then, I went through my playing career, and after I was done playing, I tried to play after that and had my dreams of the NFL. And, that didn't work out. And when I got the call to come back to my alma mater, I kind of started thinking of the impact and, the impacts that, started with my father, and then also the impact, the coaches I had all the way through high school and college. And I knew I wanted to stay close to the game. And then when I started kind of really looking at those specific things of how, guys always came back to them and they still had those kind of relationships, I was like, man, this is my calling, and I truly believe that. And, I think it helped that Robert Morris, my alma mater, came back and wanted me to, join their program, the coach, and that was the extra push I needed. And but that's when I totally knew. But I, growing up and always seeing that connection that my father had, with these guys that he still had, that was building upon, what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I can say that.
Yeah. So you kind of always had that itch, and then when the time came, you knew you were ready to rock and roll. Now, obviously, this is a coaching podcast. I'm a former running back, so I just got to brag on you real quick, because not too many times you get to be the Robert Morris is your alma mater. Robert Morris, all-time leading rusher, over 4,000 yards rushing, 2010 Conference Player of the Year, Athletic Hall of Fame inductee. I mean, that's amazing, man. So you had this amazing playing career, and then like anybody, like most of us coaches and players that have a successful career, you want to go and try to elongate that career as long as possible. During that little period between you getting this first call, we're going to talk about here in a second. What's coaching even on the radar? Were you just trying to chase that dream?
Yeah, I was trying to chase that dream. I really was, and that's one thing I tell our players, if they can try to chase that dream but still get themselves ready, once that transition happens. And I get it. Because, as you think about it, everything that you set your mind to, you pretty much accomplish, as you're going through middle school, trying to get to your high school, starting there, and then you have a goal to going to college, and you end up doing that. And, set goals for college, and you end up accomplishing that. So you just, in your head, you always accomplish, especially with football, that next thing. So, in my head, I just, thought I was going to, just make it, and I've seen other guys do those things. So, but now just trying to help with that transition, and I was blessed to, have a family and, did what I had to do academically that allowed me to make that transition a little bit easier. But it's on us as coaches to kind of get our guys ready for that next step, and understanding that they have those specific goals. And I think I had guys that, did that for me, but it's natural as an 18, 22-year-old kid just to be so locked in and so focused, on that football thing. And it's something I really learned from. And I had to really come to grasp of that, and it was a transition for me. So, I'm very open to our guys about it, and want to help them, get that to that, that mindset of, hey, if this doesn't work out, what I'm going to do, and I think that's very important.
Yeah. I'm actually happy you kind of hit on that, because I think, we've talked about it, about 300 podcasts into this deal, and we've talked about it with some coaches before, like that time frame after playing ball where your whole life, every day after school, you knew where you're going to be. You're going to be at practice. You're going to be in the weight room. You're going to be on the track. You're going to be doing some, if you're not, actively in season. And then all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt, and you're clawing and scratching for this extra opportunity to play. And kind of leading into your situation, you get this phone call to say, hey, man, we want you to come be the running backs coach here at Robert Morris, and you're in the midst of clawing and fighting to try to get into this league. How were you able to come to the conclusion that, hey, you know what, this is a good opportunity? I still believe I could have made it, but this opportunity might not come back for me.
And I ain't gonna, God, my faith, and I can't answer that question without bringing, putting that in the front. I had different things that, got me ready, spiritually, understanding that I can lean on that. And that's where I try to get our guys. Like there's different decisions. Like even when I got to Robert Morris, that I had to lean on faith, and it really got me prepared to be able to make tougher decisions, because I didn't know where I wanted to go, and I had to be able, to pray about it, talk to family about it, do a lot of different things. And I tell our kids, like, when you have tough decisions, let's try to find a formula that, kind of helps out with that decision, because you can use that same formula, later on in your life. And I can truly say, the formula that I had of how I picked the school, and some adversity that I dealt with from high school to college, and even in college, got me prepared to kind of make that, tough decision. And it had to, had to happen. And, that allowed me to really, really understand, hey, I'm moving to this next step. That playing is over. This is my next step in life. But really, going back to the formula of how I was able to make those tough decisions early on in my life, I used those same things, and that allowed me to, take that next step of being a coach.
Absolutely. Now, just walk us through a little bit, right? You're training, you're trying to make a dream come alive, and you get a phone call, pretty close up to the fall season. What went down on that phone call, and what transpired to you being the full-time running backs coach at Robert Morris?
Yeah, so it's crazy. So my running back coach was from Florida as well. He was the lead recruiter of Florida, Sam Dorsett, who's now at Monmouth now, doing great things up in New Jersey. But he was my running back coach, and he actually was the all-time leading rusher when he recruited me. So part of it. He's from South Florida, so he was about to transition into another job, and a lot of my coaches that was still there. I played for Joe Walton. He's a old times coach that was coach for the New York Jets. He was the head coach of the New York Jets in the 80s, and so a lot of those guys are still there. But he's the one who made that call. Like, man, I'm going to take another job. I think you would be great for this. And you'd be able to continue to pay it forward, and kind of the transition would be very easy. He was the running back coach, Florida recruiter, and I would kind of step into that. And but that was the call I had made. And when I got that call, that's when I was like, man, it really, you can't beat it. Right. In terms of if I'm going to take that next step and going to somewhere that I entrusted a lot of people. So that helped. That helped. And it's a little bit, it's crazy because, I met my wife at Robert Morris. So, she was graduating there, and we was thinking about, her coming down to Florida, and it just all that just made sense, man. And it wasn't, I tell guys, it's not a coincidence, what's for you is for you. God's preparing you for the place he has prepared for you. And, I thought it was just all those just made sense for me. And it definitely helped with that decision. So it was almost like, man, it's aligning perfectly. It was a door open just for me. So yeah. I had the opportunity that I had to take.
Well, you have this phenomenal playing career. You get a phone call, not like most of us in the coaching industry have ever got. Hey, man, you want a full-time FCS running back job off the rip? First job. So everything is good. Now all of a sudden, the reality of it is you got a room full of guys that are dependent on you to teach them scheme, teach them how to be better men, all the things that come with being a position coach. Obviously growing up in a household where your dad was, you were getting trained for this for a long time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a lot of stuff you're not prepared for. What were some of those difficulties of making that transition, even playing with coaching some of the guys you play with?
No, absolutely. Well, I gotta say this first. There was no full-time position. There was a EA. I'm just a running back coach. So I have to make sure I say that because I had to go through the mud just like everybody else. Got me for the cheap, and it was a good opportunity because I was able to get my master's. I was a business management. Then now I know what I wanted to do, so I ended up doing sports management with instructional leadership. For my first 2 years being a GA, even though I was the position coach, yeah. But that's the amount of trust that they had for me. Now it was a transition, man. I think I used, some of the things of me being, having the career I had, and made it a little easier being a running back coach because those guys that knew me of being the guy, they trusted me that I kind of knew what to do. I still needed to learn how to be a coach and learn everything that come along with it, just not the position, but the whole scheme of things. So that was the transition. That separation between coach and player, you still had guys that you played with on the team. Yeah. And I thought that was great for me because it allows me to help guys even with our staff. Our running back coach was, the starting quarterback in our national championship game, the year before. So he's kind of going through that same transition I had to go through. So it was difficult because, I didn't want to be a hypocrite because I understand what these guys go through, but now I'm on the coaching side of things, and, I have to, have that separation like, we talked about, but within that, still being myself and trying to understand the guys, that just being able to communicate and, have that relationship, but still making sure they understand that I'm on the other side of it now. Yeah. We want to hang out. We're not, doing those things, but still can have that bond and that relationship I think, you need to have. So, the first, year or two was going through that transition. And then I even allowed myself to be even more comfortable, once that second year was over. Most of those guys were all gone, and all the guys that were there, just knew me as Coach Russ.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't know me, you know, as Myles. But you know, I think I give credit to those couple of guys that were still part of the program, because you know I made that separation. But I think we, on both ends, I think we did a good job, you know, understanding, you know, what it is to be that coach and player relationship.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's easy for you to say, "Hey guys, I'm coach." You know, none of that. But if it don't reciprocate, it doesn't really matter. It's still the difficulties and all that kind of stuff. Now, as far as like, you know, schematics, you know, the X's and O's, the film breakdown, the long hours. What was the transition like for you as this guy that came in and rushed for a bunch of yards and was the guy, but not really probably knowing what's under the hood to you know, to make a football program run like that?
No, and I needed to know. I wasn't on player hours. Now I was you know, I always loved film and watched a lot of film, but I wasn't on player hours anymore. So like, you know, I can still remember that when you know, one of the younger coaches just, you know, kind of set me down like, hey, you're a coach now. There's no, you know, go in and you leave out once the players come in, and it's not that anymore. So, you know, that was good, man, for me to, these guys to understand that and know my transition, and helping me of understanding that, you know, this is how things are done as a coach. And, you know, they put me in a lot of positions. You know, I had to do all the grunt work, and the one thing I love about this thing is there's no faking coaching. You in or you out. There's no, and I love that about it. And it allowed me to grow, to be able to do a lot of, you know, also the GA work of the film breakdowns, the, you know, study halls, all the things that, you know, you got to do.
Right.
I think you have to have those things, especially early on in coaching, because it makes sure that you're all in. And if you don't really have those things to kind of push you, you know, you can go through this thing thinking is anybody can do it. And I think those guys allow me to really understand what it takes to be a coach, and not just a coach, a really good coach, schematically and even off the field in terms of how to build those relationships with players. And so that was big for me. That was big, but I can say they got me ready.
Absolutely. Now, you already kind of talked about some of the players that you played with leaving, and you know how that helped your growth a little bit. You know, having them gone, even though they were good with it. But from year 2012 to 2015, what was your biggest piece of growth as not just a running backs coach, but just as a coach in general?
Yeah, just the whole schematics. You know, as a running back, I was always just concerned of my position, you know, and what the linebackers were doing, and you know, different things like that, and not looking at it as a whole schematic of offense, defense, and everything. You know, and you know, understand the protection and why we're doing those specific protections. Understanding more of the passing game. You know, what we're trying to accomplish, and then being a lot more in the special teams aspect of it. I would say this for any younger coach, and I even do this with our staff, even though our staff is very new, with me being the head coach for the first year this year. You know, trying to guys that have been on the offensive side of the ball early on, trying to see if they can put in them on the defensive side of the ball. And that's one thing that I wish I had, you know, and I get it, especially with college coaching. You know, once you kind of start, and especially me, I played running back, so they made me the running back coach, and I was on the offensive side. But you know, I wish I could have been on the defensive side. You know, me early on, and so I can get aspects of it, because it just allows you to have a variety to yourself and look at the game in different ways. So that's one thing I do wish I could have had, because now when you do a specific position and you do it at a really good level, or you're having good success, you know, you're pretty much that guy. You really, I don't want to say stuff, but you are stuck, you know, at that specific position, or, you know, or that side of the ball. So, you know, that I learned that piece of it. You know, going back to the question, you know, I had to learn a little bit of what everybody needed to do, because I did have goals. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be a head coach, and I knew that I needed to understand, every different aspect of the game. I think that's what I learned the most of, not just focusing on my specific position, but also understanding the ins and outs of the entire offense.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I kind of want to echo that. During my time, I started off as a receiver coach, although I played running back, but I really got into, when I started learning receiver play, I just realized how much ball was out there that I just didn't care about. You know what I'm saying? When I'm a back, what hole you want me to hit, coach?
I know that.
Who do I need to pick up in protection? But then, I started getting that, and then unfortunately, I didn't see that opportunity as go get other positions under your belt, go get the other side of the ball under your belt. I saw it more as, man, dang, I'm going to be the best receiver coach. And I kind of pigeonhole myself there a little bit. And then in hindsight, even sitting here in this role, although I never returned back to the profession, and I've learned so much about defensive play and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm a better coach sitting behind this thing doing a podcast than I ever was, just because I've really opened up my brain and to take knowledge. So that's awesome advice. Hopefully, some young coaches listen to podcasts can take that, and if there's some opportunities to explore, they go and explore that. So and you get another special call in 2015, somewhere around that time frame, maybe 2016. But you get another special call. And I'm very curious on what led you to take this opportunity, because it's a unique opportunity that's led to some great things for you. But tell us a little bit about this call that you get.
It was a blessing. It was an opportunity to come back home. It was a door that was open just for me, and like I go back to that's how God works, and it works in my life. It was crazy because Coach Socha, I never worked with him, but I was going back to getting prepared, so and treating people right and doing the right thing. So Coach Socha, I was the Florida recruiter. Coach Socha was a great coach down here in South Florida. I ended up dealing with him a lot because I got a couple of his players and brought them up to Robert Morris, and we, and was always very transparent with them, and was able to say, hey, this is the guys that I want, and he might kind of push other guys, and I, sometimes I'm transparent, I want to do right, and a coach, I feel like he's not the one for us, and I wasn't going back and forth. I wasn't trying to pull nobody's train, and was able to, recruit like I felt was the right way of doing things. And the one thing I've learned through recruiting, even as a player, and the one thing I wanted to do as a coach, I always wanted to be transparent and honest about this thing and where we were at. And I was able to do that while I was a coach and recruiting. So kind of fast forward, my previous coach at Robert Morris, who was a guy, lowest guy on the totem pole, was a GA, always had much respect for, and really ended up, have a relationship with him. But fast forward, he ends up being one of the quality controls at the Buffalo Bills. And it's just amazing how God works, because I was able to do an internship with the Buffalo Bills. And then that next year, Coach Socha ended up working with the Buffalo Bills with my guy, and Jason Brable. And they ended up, having built a relationship and talking. And when Coach Socha ended up trying to get the job here, ended up getting the job, he had my name as one of the guys on his short list of wanting to hire. And then, he says that to my guy, Jason Vrabel, his list, and Vrabel had nothing but good things to say about me, of me as a person. And it wasn't as a player, but as a person. And that allowed me to get the job that ended up opening up. So Coach Socha got the job at Keiser University, brand new startup program. He called me. I was the first guy to be on campus with him, and we grew this thing, Coach Socha is my mentor, and he really saw something in me, not just bringing me home, but putting me in a lot of different positions to help grow this thing. And while we were growing, he was preparing me at the same time. And we had nothing. We had nothing. I mean, everything that has been built here. I've seen, and that's something that I would say a lot of people can't be a part of. So, I was very excited and happy about it, but just being able to be a part of something from the ground up was crazy, man. It was remarkable and something that we're still trying to continue to improve.
Yeah. Well, we keep the podcast pretty chronological, but I do want to mention this so people can have some context a little bit to how special kind of what happened in these early years was. But in 2022 NAIA National Championship runners up, NAIA 2023 NAIA National Champions, won it all, and then this past December 2024 NAIA National runner up. So you're looking at less than a decade. You're 6-7 years. You go from nothing to a roster of guys that can get it done and go play, at the highest level, at the NAIA level. What just when you start talking about ground zero, in 2016, 2017, what were some of the early decisions that kind of helped lay the foundation for a program that's going to be able to have the kind of success that you guys are seeing right now?
I think it starts with alignment from top to bottom, with the administration all the way down to the coaches. Another thing I learned is people. The people in the building, the people that you're bringing in the building. Started with the coaches, making sure that they're fitting the culture and everything that you're about, because they're going to help and push that culture. And then now, as you bring in the players and the kids, in the beginning, it is what it is. We had to just bring in a bunch of kids. And we had to build a roster. But once we did that, we had to start particularly trying to, find the guys that were part of what we're trying to do within the culture. We had to, it is what it is. We had to weed out the guys that, wasn't, abiding by what we were trying to do and the goals that we had. And one thing about it, you have to, you have these standards, but you have to be consistent with them, and they got to be on and off the field. And then understanding that the stuff off the field, even in the classroom and how they're acting, that translates to on the field. So really, kind of setting the standard, we had to get all these guys, but once we set the standard, how to weed out guys that wasn't abiding by the standard and the culture that we had, and still keep the guys that were. And then as we brought in new guys that came in, being a little bit more strategic of who we were bringing in once we had that foundation. Building the foundation, and I can't say it's pros and cons to it, because those guys, we were all that they knew. So what we were doing was all that they knew. It wasn't like we was coming in, into a program that was built by anybody else. So that was the pros about it. But the cons was in terms of, they were young guys, so we were very young. And I think one thing that helped, we had a year of just practicing first. So we didn't jump right in. I think having that year helped helped with the foundation so we can get this thing rolling. So that first year, no practice, no games. The second year, but the first season we went 6-4, and then the next year 10-0 playoffs, and then we were rolling. But the foundation was built the right way, so we can be able to stand on and continue to grow it.
If I was a running backs coach and I was struggling with developing a back in my room or something like that, I can pick my cell phone up, dial up old Coach Russ and say, "Hey man, what do you do right here on this on Dart? Hey, what you teaching your back?" And you could school me up. But when you're sitting up here saying we're building this thing from ground zero, like who are you calling? Even in some of your personal challenges of saying, "Man, I'm not coaching on Saturday for I guess 2 years, right? It was a kind of a 2-year stint." You know what I'm saying? So who were you leaning on during this time, especially when there's not a lot of people that got this experience that you're kind of going through?
So I lean on a lot of people. I'm going to name some people, but nobody really has done what we've done, because it's not that brand new program. So I lean on people of how to do things the right way, also with running backs and how we can build a culture. So going back, the Coach Dorsett, that was my running back coach, and it really helped me out while trying to continue to grow as a coach in terms of that. Autry Denson is one of my mentors as well. It's crazy that we had the same high school coach. So I know Autry, who's now the running back coach at the Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals. But he was a running back, played at Notre Dame. Was a head coach as well. Godly man that I can lean on. So those guys specifically, that played the position, that coached highly at that position, and were leader men. And I think that lean on those guys. And but in terms of specifically of what to do, of not having any games and building it from the ground up, I couldn't call anybody. It was just so brand new, man. And it's not many places that you building it from the ground up.
Right.
But those guys specifically helped me in terms of running my room and being able to be aligned with the culture that our head coach was setting, and be able to have that communication with him as well.
Yeah, so you guys have a 6-4 first season there in 2018 and 2019. You get a promotion. You're promoted to assistant head coach. What was the reason and what was the logic, and what did that mean to you?
Yeah. So one thing about this lower level, it's a lot of things that coaches, different hats you got to have, that you don't have to do that at D1 level. So dealing with admissions, dealing with financial aid, dealing with housing, making sure NAIA, we have a salary cap with the roster and how many scholarships. So I did all of that, and I was, and that's all because of Coach Social. And I make sure I always, shout him out and give him praise, because at the end of the day, he was preparing me. I think, also within that, he was the offensive coordinator as well. So it's only so much time that you have. So it's almost prepare me. And then he was also like, hey, you deal with that. I got enough to deal with.
Right.
But I still had to, gain that trust from him. And that's one thing I give to him, and I really appreciate it. So that assistant head coach, doing all that off the field stuff, and then him bringing me on in meetings to make certain decisions with the team of if we are having a problem with the player, how we're going to go about this, and then he also empowered me in making certain decisions. So I would say this: he allowed me and he forced me to be able to be myself, but still get the results that he wanted. So I had to grow. I had to grow as a leader. I had to grow. I don't go by this anymore because I think it's a fine line. I was like a player's coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always had, I'm that nice guy that always want to get guys together. But, in leadership, you're going to have to make tough decisions, and you're going to have to make decisions that people are not going to agree with. So I had to find my way, and he forced me to find my way of how I can get to those decisions and still be myself. And I think that point when I ended up being assistant head coach, that was the starting point of, how I was going to be able to lead and be able to be a head coach when I got the opportunity within my own way. And while I'm doing that, making sure I'm doing it at a high level, and it's at a level standard that we set forth as part of this program. So, but that was the start of the learning process, and really me finding myself as a coach and a leader of men, taking that next step, understanding, things are not always sunshine and rainbows, and you're going to have to be able to, make those tough decisions and be able to, face the families in the face and let them know their son is doing this, and we have to move forward and move on, all those things, but kind of getting through it within the best way possible within who I am as a person.
You mentioned in so many ways you're been a leader in your own way. been a leader in your own style. And so I kind of want to put a bookmark on that because I want to come back to that here when you actually take over the program in 24. So you get this promotion in 2019. You go through a few more seasons. You guys are seeing this upward trajectory, and all of a sudden you break through in 2022. You're in the big game. Unfortunately, you come up on the losing end of that, but you've took a program from nothing to put it in a national championship. What was the takeaway from that season, like to kind of have you now in this continuous run of making it to the national championship? What was the takeaway from that season when you guys got in the staff office after that and first talked after that first national championship appearance?
Yeah, it was the focus and attention to detail, and we did a really good job. But the attention to detail was definitely one thing that we focused on, and I think we were really good with it. But we knew we had to turn it up a notch. Also, physicality, and that's something that I'm continuing to learn as well. As we talk about some of the things, while we didn't get it done in our national championship game, but it ended up going back to that of the making sure the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, the physicality and the want to. So like after that season, we were just so honed in, focused in of the details, physicality, and being as one, as a team. And it kind of, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but that got us ready. We even got red jerseys because we lost to Northwestern College. That's a really good program up in Iowa. And we even got the defense red jerseys just to remind us who we lost to, who they were the Red Raiders. And it just reminded us we're trying to get the red banner, NAIA. That's what the champions get. So we were just so locked in. So now we were prepared and we were ready. So, it wasn't a coincidence. We were able to get back to that point the next year and, get over that hump.
Well, let's go ahead and hop into 2023. 2023, you guys are highly motivated. You're able to identify these points that you need to see improvement in to accomplish what you want to accomplish it. Yeah. And you roll through the season and you accomplish it. And it almost seems like probably the next month was a whirlwind in regards to winning the national championship. I don't know. I know Coach Socha. I want to say he's been on a podcast years ago, but he I don't know what led to his departure, but he's out. He's out, moved on, and now you get named the head coach. What was the situation like? Paint that picture for us.
Yeah, man. So Coach Socha and pretty much 90% of the staff went to Lenoir-Rhyne. So he's at Division II Lenoir-Rhyne, and it happened pretty quick. It really did. Obviously we. I was part of that process that he was going, and I was going to be part of that staff. But once we said that, the AD at Keiser, wanted to talk, and then we talked about some things, and I ended up showing him my vision of who I was and where I wanted the program to go, and it kind of went pretty fast. So Coach Socha, gets the job. 90% of our staff goes, and it's funny. I walked into that morning. I walked into our assistant coach's office, and there was nobody there. It was just me.
Yeah.
And I don't tell this story too much, but like that made it so real for me, and I broke down because it was my dream.
Yeah.
But it was one of the scariest times in my life because now, I have this program and I feel like I'm by myself, and it was just, hey, I broke down and was like, hey, guys, you got me here, like, let's do this thing. But It was scary. And then I had to go in front of the team, and they named me the head coach. And one thing that helped me, the guys had genuine just happiness that I was the guy.
Yeah.
And seeing those faces, seeing how happy they were, knowing it was going to be a transition. Don't get me wrong, but knowing that I had guys that had my back, And sometimes you just kind of need that. I don't take that stuff for granted, and that gave me urgency of like, hey, let's get this thing going, and that started the process of the building, and the biggest part about it was trying to keep the foundation, but doing it my way, and doing it within the culture that I have, and I started this thing with grit. That's our core values. I wanted people to go to our games and see how tough and disciplined our players were. And then I wanted people to know outside of the field what we represented and who they were. And grit is genuine, respectful, innovative, and trustworthy. And I say that everywhere we go. And the team knows, understands that. We put it everywhere. We put it on Twitter because I want them to show that, and the field, of course, on the field, but I want them to be those kind of young men that once they're in the community, in the dorms, on campus, and they were part of that. And that's one thing we just started working on, and we wanted to, to build those kind of young men up just like that. And I think the biggest transition for me for that before that year is the hiring process, because I knew how important. First, it's my first time, and second, but I wanted to get the right people that aligned with who I was, and that's with the kids. They have to have relationships. They have to communicate with the kids first, and then of course the X and the O's that come along with it. But I wanted to get grit kind of coaches, genuine, respectful, innovative, trustworthy kind of coaches, and I knew that was very important to getting those key pieces in, building a brand new staff. I was able to keep a couple of guys from the previous staff, but like I said, 90% of the staff went to Lenore. So trying to get those right people. And I did something that you can call innovative, or you can call crazy, whatever you want to call it. But I had some of the players within position groups. I broke them up, and I had them write down what they would like to see out of a coach that they would want to have. And then even that was probably crazy. I brought some of them in to be part of the interview process. Wow. Because, and understand that we were in this thing together, and I wanted to build it with them. And, I can't say this thing, I want to build this thing of being player led without, allowing them to be in, leadership type of meetings. Right. We did that. Our first meetings were them, writing some things down and presenting to the team what they wanted to see out their position coach or coordinator. And then I literally took what they had written down and presented, and we had it, right there as we interview guys. And, our offensive coordinator was actually he was a part-time guy, Myles Russ, was a part-time guy for us. I was a quarterback coach. And we literally took everything that the guys written down, and I started talking with him, and he was aligning and hitting everything that they wanted. And we started talking, and, we were able to bring him in to be a full-time offensive coordinator, first time being a coordinator. Just like I was the first time being a head coach. And then bringing our defensive coordinator, Peter Davila from University of Albany, who's who's originally from Miami. So giving him an opportunity to come back home. And again, bringing those guys in that interview and having those, things that we wanted to see out of him. And he had to explain the defense that we were running. And he had to be open to some things that we wanted to see and I wanted to see for the program. And bringing him in, and he was the first-time defensive coordinator. So, I was like, it didn't really matter because I felt like this was a program that was built and ready for opportunity. So everybody was given opportunity, and we had that mindset of, wanting to make the best out of it. And it goes to some of the position coaches that they were first-time position coaches. And but at the end of the day, it still went back to the core values and what we wanted to get out of the program and the culture that we wanted to set it started with them first, who we were bringing in, and it ended up being pretty good for us. And I think it goes back to how we did it, and really giving a lot of credit while empowering the players. They took ownership of it and did a good job, and we worked on this thing together and was able to bring in the right people for this program.
Man, you know what? This is one of those moments in a podcast I'm just not going to forget. Just being brutally honest, man, because there's no right way or wrong way to do any of this stuff. I'm you've met enough coaches over time, and everybody does things slightly different. But as a young coach taking over a job for the first time, the easy thing for you to do would have been to call this 45-year-old dude that's going to come in, and he's been an OC for 4 or 5 years, maybe had some head coaching experience, and once again, it wouldn't be wrong to do that, but that's the answer 9 times out of 10 I'm going to get. But instead, you go the opposite direction. You say, hey, players, man, what are you looking for? You know what I'm saying? Because I could come. Well, we'll be an empty throwing the ball around 60 times, but if I'm going to come and treat your players, not great, or not be a great fit for the culture, who cares, right? And so, out of curiosity, when you asked the question, what popped in my head was, what were some of the traits that those players wrote down that stood out to you?
Yeah. So, offensively, they wanted to be more balanced. They wanted to still have that. We have a big RTB, that's run the ball, and we wanted to keep that. But within that, we understood that we have some playmakers on our side that we wanted to give opportunities for. Offensive line wise, one of the guys that went in Lenore, one of my best friends, Jelani Lower, that's doing a great job. He really built a strong culture with the offensive line. Yeah. He really did. And that was probably the hardest position because they were so connected to him. Mm-hmm. And he did a great job. That's what his job was. But that transition of trying to find the right guy, because everything they did was Jelani. They wanted Jelani. I was like, fellas, I can't get Jelani. Jelani's moving on. We're going to find ways of what Jelani did and who he is as a person, and we're going to work on those things. And it's kind of crazy. We end up hiring a O-line coach, and it was really good. And he wasn't Jelani, but he was ahead of the game in terms of being at some bigger places and coming from a bigger program. And in a weekend, he left. So I had to get a brand new O-line coach, and it was something good for me because it reminded me of, like, you got to understand when you get bigger school coaches, they always have different things going on. Right. So I knew better, but I made that hire, and he had to do what's best for his family. I don't blame anybody about that, but I learned, like, hey, get guys in bigger places. Right. They're moving on, and they always have other things. So we end up leaning on actually a guy that Coach Lord ended up coaching when he was in high school. When the guy was in high school, and he was a play offensive line for us, Antonio Woods. That play offensive line at FAU. That was a hometown kid that was really built by Coach Lord, and had the same excitement and was a student of the game. I wanted my thought process with him. We brought him in as a tight end coach, and I always wanted to get him ready to be the O-line coach. But that movement kind of fast forward things a little bit. And but now, bringing him in and making him the O-line coach, knowing that I wasn't, I thought he needed some time, but he went at this thing just to, like, attacked it. Yeah. And once I knew that, and that gave me some stability because he was all in. This was a great opportunity for him. Keiser was where he wanted to be. He wanted to grow from there, and that allowed me to kind of understand, hey, at least I can trust this guy is going to be with us for a little bit. And I want guys to grow within our program, but I knew how important it was for this first couple of years to have some kind of stability. Yeah. And Will came in and did a great job. But going back to your question, is trying to find those the players wanted guys. They wanted to be led. They wanted strong leaders. They wanted guys to keep them accountable. On defensive side of the ball, we were very dominant defensively, so we wanted to still keep our structure of a 3-down structure. But I wanted to kind of use some things that kind of gives us some problems offensively. So I wanted to implement some of that stuff defensively. Of being able to beat multiple fronts, having multiple fronts, and bringing a lot of different pressures, but having different coverages behind it.
Yeah.
And we were very man oriented that the year before. So kind of getting those were some of the things that were being said from the players, and obviously some of my things were added to those, and but it's just amazing how these players, they want to be coached.
Yeah,
they want to be held accountable, and they want that. I know we always say that they're different and the world is different, but these guys still they want to be the best, and I think sometimes we lose track of that as coaches of trying to not do things a certain way because how they might react to it or how they might feel. But I learned a lot from them of them understanding that they want to be pushed.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we kind of understood, and that's one thing we do. We demand, we don't demean, and we really push these guys in every aspect. But that's one thing that I learned from them.
Well, we had that bookmark earlier about, and you honestly just already answered that, listening to you answer these other questions. But the bookmark was, you had a guy that came and built the program from the ground up. You know what I'm saying? He puts you in his leadership position. He's kind of, you're taking this opportunity as assistant head coach to say, man, I want to be my own guy. Do this my own way with respect and within the realms of you as the head coach, Coach Social. But now you get the program, and once again, the easy thing to do would have been okay, what was his philosophy? How did we do this? How did we structure practice? What was his thought process on this? Where I wouldn't fault you. You just won a national championship, right? You know what I'm saying? Nobody I think would blame you, and you kind of, probably still kept. I would imagine kept some things that should stay, but you did put your own stamp on it relatively quick. That thing could have went south, man. You won a national championship, and all of a sudden you're over, right? It could definitely go that way. How do you have the confidence to say, hey, man, you know what? I'm going to hire like this. I'm going to do this like this. I'm going to change the model of the grid. Where does that confidence come from?
I would say I'm going to go through this thing. I'm going to do it my way because I don't want to. If it don't go that way, I can always don't go the way I want it to go.
Right.
And now I can say I did it my way of what I thought was the best.
Yeah.
Another thing too, these kids understand fake. They get it. If you try to be somebody else or something else, they see that from a mile away, and then you lose them. So that's one thing. I knew whenever I was going to be a head coach, I always knew I didn't want to be a coordinator. I felt like it didn't align. I still want to be a coach and be able to go around. But I knew for me to communicate, to me to build the relationships I want, for me to have the pulse of the team like I wanted to, I have to spend a lot of that time doing it. And I have to find the right people and empower them to do the other, X's and O's and things that I'm going to still be part of, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But if I wanted to build it that way and that culture that we wanted to build, that's what I had to do. So a lot of it is, meeting with players. I meet with the players a lot. I have a list of the roster. With all the players, and it goes by a week, and I kind of track of when I talk to players, and I can kind of look at it. Hey man, I haven't had a true conversation with this player in 2 weeks. Let me bring him in, and being able to kind of track those guys and tracking that from the top to bottom. I want this program I want the bottom player and when I say bottom player on the field to feel as loved as the top player, because who you think is preparing the top player? It's the bottom player on scout team.
Yeah.
So like if you don't have that and you don't build that and they don't feel that relationship, that love, why would they want to put what they want to, everything they can in the program that they're not feeling? And I'm not saying that would happen before, but I knew that's what the culture that I wanted to push even more. And I was able to, be put in, that position to do so, and be able to use a lot of that. I told you the lights were going to go out on me, but so I was going to be able to use that as well.
As we kind of come to a close here, Coach, you were named the head coach in 2024. You played for the national championship here in 2024, and following this season as a first-year head coach, you were named to the 2024 AFCA NAIA Coach of the Year, and you were the winner. And this is voted on by your peers. This is the caveat that makes this so special, at least to me. What did this honor mean to you?
It means a lot. I don't take for granted the amount of work that comes on with it. It means that the people around did a great job. Unfortunately, it's an individual award, but it's so many different people that have an impact within it. And that's the assistant coaches, that's the players, that's the families that are families that make a lot of different sacrifices with us being in this realm. All those people, this is their award and a reward. And I just feel so blessed to be able to, that my peers saw that, losing so many players from the championship year to this year, and being able to bring a lot of new guys in that really bought into what we were trying to do. That is a testament to them as well. So it's a blessing. It really is, and I don't take for granted me being able to get this opportunity that a lot of people are not able to get, especially at from my track at my age. The whole deal. So I don't take any of those things for granted, and I feel like I need to be responsible of being able to be at this spot. That I need to do things the right way, and I feel like we're doing so as a program, and it feels good that my peers see the same way. So it's been great. It really has.
Well, congratulations on that. And you mentioned the age. You were also selected into this year's class of the AFCA 35 under 35. And this podcast was like last week. You know what I mean? This was just fresh for you here. What was your experience like in this program, and why would you encourage others to apply for this?
Man, it just gets you ready in so many different aspects of it. And I love the different coaches that came in and just told their stories, and not even just for being a head coach, but how to be a really good assistant coach, and how what to do to be a really good assistant coach that can get you prepared to be a head coach. How to do finances. That's one thing that comes along with it as well. It's just I love hearing from all those guys. We had a panel that was a lot of different areas. I would say for the high school coach, for the junior college coach, from the NAIA coach, from the Division I coach, is for all those kind of guys. And I think that's one thing I loved about it, that it wasn't just centered on the big time, coaches. That's why I say big time, that Power 4, Power 5 guys. It's a great opportunity for everybody, and it really impacted everybody. And just to hear their stories and to hear. And really being able to sit down with them and kind of see how they got to where they were, and what it took, and and hear their philosophies, and some of the things that they were saying, how I can bring it to our program and kind of implement those things, what they said in terms of how to deal with players, how they track players. I'm not going to go too specific on certain things, but I really took a lot of those things, and I'm finding ways of how we can implement that right now. So, I loved it. I think I'm part of fraternity forever, that a prestigious fraternity that is with the best coaches, in the country. And, I'm very excited, to show, kind of put how I can continue to pay it forward. Cause I think, I give those guys a lot of credit of coming back, cause they're doing some amazing things right now, but they still feel the need to, give back. So I appreciate, all those guys, for doing that as well.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you for making that program even better than what it is and continue to elevate that brand. Before I let you go here, I want to get the opportunity to share any social media that, people can follow to keep up with you guys' journey and your personal journey.
Yeah. You follow me on Twitter, Coach Myles Russ, MYLESRUSS, and then Keiser Football. I think this is a program that we're trying to continue to build it the right way. NAIA program in West Palm Beach, Florida. We're always recruiting, trying to get the right guys, the best guys, but good people. And one thing about this program, I feel like we're preparing our guys for that next step. So I'm excited, and I appreciate the opportunity to, showcase and put out our program and what we're doing. And hopefully, we can continue to build this thing the right way and, get over that hump and win the national championship, this upcoming year.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we'll be cheering you on, man. I appreciate everything, and look forward to talking to you soon, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcast, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.